But this is the part that kind of left me a little traumatized and was just like crazy. Hi guys, so today, oh, baby's being fussy. Hold on a second. What's the matter?
When you ask her, she answers.
I know you're tired, huh?
BB's sleepy.
She's sleepy, and we're disturbing her slumber trying to film this video right now. Who disturbs my slumber? Now she's laughing. Who disturbs my slumber? Okay, so we wanted to share our birth story. Her birth story. Yeah, your birth story. And because we shared the video, but we kind of just shared the highlights. We kind of just wanted to go through the whole thing because it was pretty intense. I would say my birth experience was traumatizing. And when I shared it on Instagram, a lot of people said theirs was too. So I thought it was important to share everyone's journey because labor is different for everyone. So here we go. Here is the birth story of Miss London Aria Brown. So it was like 7 o'clock in the morning and I woke up to contractions and they were coming pretty consistently. But they kind of felt like Braxton Hicks, so I wasn't sure. But I'm like, okay, I'm timing them for an hour. They're coming every like 4 or 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my goodness, I think I'm in labor. So Brown fell asleep in the studio. So I like wait because I'm like, okay, I don't want to wake him up if I'm not really in labor. So I wait a little bit and I'm like, okay, I think I might be in labor. So I go wake you up. At this point, it's like probably 8 in the morning. Maybe 9, something around. No, it's like 8. And I'm like, Brown, I think I'm in labor. And then I don't remember what you did. But you kind of wake up and he's like, I went to bed at 5. You didn't get any sleep.
I didn't get any sleep.
Yeah. So then we're like, okay. That day I had a doctor's appointment. And so now we're like, should we go to the doctor's appointment or should we go to the hospital?
I'm trying to give the hospital a quick call to make sure if we need to go to the appointment or we need to go straight to the hospital.
So we call the doctor and they're like, you should go to labor and delivery because she's going to send you there anyway if you're having consistent contractions. But at this point, they weren't strong, like they were bearable, but they were consistent. So I wasn't sure. I've never been in labor. I don't know how it works. So en route to the doctor's, we detour and go to the hospital and we're like, okay, fine, let's go to the hospital, see what they're talking about. So we go to the hospital, they admit us. Now this is Corona time, so they have me walk in, like they do some weird like I Am Legend scan and they're like 97.5, somehow got my temperature and then they bring me up to labor and delivery. Danny has to wait downstairs for an hour before they decide if they're going to admit me and then he can come up. So they had you waiting where? Just like in the car?
Yeah, I was in the car. They had me waiting in valet, just kind of just off to the side.
So he's waiting for me while I'm upstairs. So they hook me up, get my vitals, get my contractions, and they hook the baby up to get her heart monitor, and they check to see if I'm dilated. They're like, everything looks good, baby looks good, let's check to see if you're dilated. She said I'm contracting pretty regularly, but it's not like in a pattern yet. But they're gonna check to see how far I'm dilated. If I'm not dilated that much, they're gonna send me home. So they check me, I'm not dilated at all. And she's like, you need to go home and finish like labor at home until you're in active labor. You're just in early labor. But they determined I was in labor. And then they said, don't come back until you can't talk through your contractions or walk. Like, it has to be that severe. She's like, you're too happy right now. I didn't even tell you she said that to me. She's like, you won't be smiling like once you're actually in labor. So I was like, all right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because we thought for sure that
it
was the time.
We were like, that's time. I'm like, yeah, I'm done 8 centimeters. Let's go.
We're waiting for days.
Yeah.
You know?
So we went home, labored at home. At this point, it's like maybe 1 o'clock.
Yeah, 1 or 2 o'clock.
So I'm like in labor for 5 hours at this point, right?
No.
Yeah, because 7 in the morning, right? I know, it doesn't, the time flew by, like as far as like, wow, I've been in labor for a long time. So 7 to 1, I'm in labor. I decide to just labor at home. So we whip out the medicine ball, we whip out all the things, and I'm just waiting for them to get worse. And they do. As the day progresses, the contractions start to get really bad, and then I started to understand what she was talking about as far as not being able to talk through them. So I'm rolling on the medicine ball. I'm using our little massage machine. Danny's massaging me. And slowly, like each hour, they're getting worse. But they never got consistent. Like they were just always like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and they were 30 seconds long. And the doctor said they had to be 5-1-1, right? So 5 minutes apart. Why do I keep forgetting what 5-1-1 is?
5 minutes apart for
one
minute long.
Oh yeah, 5 minutes apart, and they have to be 1 minute long for 1 hour straight. So I never got to that point. So I'm trying everything. I took a bath. We called my sister so my sister could come over and be ready to like take care of Nina, because at this point we knew I'm gonna be in the hospital at least tonight or the next day.
Right.
So we're just waiting. It's getting worse, and then it gets real bad, and Danny's testing me. He's like, okay, if you can say your ABCs, if you can talk through the contraction, like the moment you can't, we're going to the hospital.
Yeah,
so you kept quizzing me.
You kept fighting it.
Yeah, because I didn't want to go, because I felt like, okay, as severe as it felt, I felt like, okay, I wasn't 5-1-1. I wasn't consistent like the doctor said. So I was like, well, I don't think I'm ready.
But you're hunched over the couch like this.
I was in so much pain. Like, there's no pain like a contraction. There's no sugarcoating it. It was super painful. And I thought I was going to have a high tolerance for contractions, because I've had really bad period cramps my whole life. But this was not even close. So
I don't think it was that bad, personally.
Yeah, he wouldn't. How about I kick you in the balls? Repeatedly, every hour. Every 1 minute for an hour. Imagine that. Oh, sorry, baby. I'm too loud for her. So what happens next?
So contractions got worse.
So they get worse. At this point, now it's nighttime, where it's like 11 o'clock at night. The pain is so severe. At this point, I'm like, okay, even though the contractions aren't coming like the doctor said, we gotta go to the hospital, because I'm in so much pain. At this point, I'm like, feel like I'm gonna cry.
This is hour 16.
Yeah, 16 hours. Wow. So we're already like, I feel like deep in labor. So we go to the hospital and we do the whole thing all over again.
Oh. Made it to the hospital.
It hurts. I walk into the hospital. Danny has to wait outside. At this point, valet is closed because it's late. So Danny's just waiting, and then we're gonna basically figure it out if they admit me. So I go back upstairs. This time I can't walk, so they have to wheelchair me upstairs, and they do the same thing: hook me up, take my vitals, track my contractions, track London's heart rate. They check to see if I'm dilated, and this time it's 0.5 centimeter. So I'm laboring all that time at home, and I'm only 0.5 centimeter when I get to the hospital. At this point, it's probably like 17 hours of labor. So I'm like, you have to be kidding me. I'm in so much pain. Like, how is it only 0.5 centimeter? So she's like, your contractions still, like, they're coming consistent, but she's like, they're still not strong enough, like where it's opening up your cervix. So I'm gonna send you home again, that's what the doctor's saying, and then you have to keep laboring at home until you're in active labor, and then come back. At this point, I'm like, I don't know if I can go home. I'm in so much pain. Like, I did not think they were gonna send me home. So then she's like, I can give you medicine and then send you home. And then I wasn't comfortable with that because I didn't want to take anything strong and go home. So later, I think she sees how distraught I am, and they're like, well, you don't have to go home. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to go. Then I start crying. I'm like, I don't want to go home. I didn't want to go home. So they admit me, and then that's when I text Danny, what was happening downstairs while I was...
So I parked in valet again, and they're closed. So I had to ask the security, third-party security team that didn't know anything about anything where I should park. All the valet spots were taken, so I couldn't just slide my car in there and then try to figure it out later. So I had to kind of circle the block the entire time. I'm like circling the block. I'm like coming in and out of the parking garage, just trying to find parking because there is none. And it just so happened that somebody, as soon as you texted me, somebody decided to pull out of one of the spots. And I had to like hurry up and pull in while somebody else was trying to pull in. And I didn't care because I'm having a baby.
People are like fighting for spots.
What are you doing?
What if they were having a baby?
What's your excuse? Pick rock, scissors. I don't know. So I pull in, and just to kind of be safe about it, I took a napkin that was in our glove compartment, and I had a pen, and I just wrote on the pen, "My girlfriend's having a baby. Please don't tell me." We just checked in because if they came in the morning, they'd probably tell me.
Yeah.
So I'm parking in valet, but then I got checked in. I'm carrying 4 bags and a suitcase.
We had so much stuff.
You packed a lot.
Yeah, I overpacked, but that's another video.
And
so you come upstairs. So before Danny meets me, he meets me in the labor room. I think that's what it's called. Before they admit me, they have to check if I have corona. So in between contractions, she's like sticking the swab all the way back to the back of my throat, to my tonsils, and then she sticks it all the way up, like almost to my eye, like another like swab. So I'm in labor, and in between contractions, she's like sticking things up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like it was a lot. So
just piling on.
Yeah, just things. Like things. So I was negative for corona, so they admitted me, and then Danny meets me in the labor room.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm trying to walk through the contractions and just like get through it, and I'm like, okay, I'm in so much pain, and they offered me morphine. That's like a super strong drug, and that's with the beginning of when our birth plan started going out the window. Because the one thing I didn't want was super strong drugs. I was going to actually try to do it natural, but I know I didn't prepare for it. So I knew that was going to probably not be the case, but I thought at the most I was going to do epidural.
Yeah.
So at that point we debated, we called your mom, we decided like if we should do the morphine or not, because we decided to do it because I was in so much pain and I needed relief. And at this point, we're hitting it's probably like 2-3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I hadn't slept, and I was just like, I need sleep. Like, I'm not going to be able to push her out or anything if I don't get some relief. And I'm not dilated. So we decided to take the medicine, and then also I took something for nausea, because I started feeling real nauseous, like I was going to throw up. And the last thing I wanted to do was throw up. So I was like, please give me something for nausea. So once they give me that, I'm just like...
You're flying.
I was high. Like, there's no other way to put it. I felt like drugged out. I was like, it was funny.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 30,000 feet in the air. Go ahead and strap on in.
That was me. I was high. So, but you can still feel the pain, but you just don't, it's just more bearable, but you definitely still feel it. So I'm in a haze. At this point, I'm just laboring through. So we go a few more hours. She checks to see how far I'm dilated, and at this point I'm 3 centimeters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 3 centimeters dilated. So we're like, yay! Even though that's
progress.
Like nothing, but it's like more than half a centimeter or nothing. So I was like, okay, we're making progress. I'm dilated. We decided once I was a little bit dilated, we would do the epidural, and then we would start Pitocin. So Pitocin basically helps regulate your contractions, like helps them become strong. A lot of people use it to induce labor, but I was already in labor, so what it would do is make the contractions stronger, So they were more effective in pushing the baby down, and it makes them more consistent because my contractions were still not strong enough or consistent enough at this point. So the lady comes in and does the epidural, which honestly wasn't that bad. That probably was the least crazy part out of everything, which is saying a lot. And then we did the Pitocin. So once the Pitocin goes, it's in your system right away. So basically, I guess it gets in your system right away, and then it gets out of your system right away. Like they can, as soon as they turn off the machine, it's out of your system. It doesn't like linger. So they turn on the Pitocin, and as soon as they turn it on, right? As soon as they turn it on, I get one long, strong contraction. It had to last at least I felt like 2-3 minutes. And at this point, I'm still I'm drugged out. So I feel the pain, but it's not registering. I'm like, wait, this isn't right. Like, this is too long. Like, my mind is like going, just figuring out what's happening. And then I look up, and there's like a wave of doctors and nurses flood into the room, and they're like, turn it off, shut it down. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I knew something wasn't right. So clearly something wasn't right, and basically that's a side effect of Pitocin, and it just gave me a really long, strong contraction, and the baby's heart rate just went down. It dipped. So they were really concerned about that, and they turned it off immediately. And at that point, the epidural didn't kick in yet, so I could feel that contraction very strong. So they were like, all right, we're going to let the epidural kick in. We're going to let you just labor on your own, because basically the whole time, even without the Pitocin, my contractions were affecting the baby. So when I was getting a contraction, you can see her heart rate dipping a little bit. So they were like, let's just try to regulate the baby's heart rate. Let's let you labor on your own, and then we'll start up the Pitocin again, maybe, and see how your body's reacting to it. So then a few more hours later, I don't even know what time or anything is right now.
This is the next day.
This is next morning, right?
This is easily next morning.
And we're on to the next.
12.
We might be on the second doctor and nurse staff at this point, because through the labor, I think we went through 3 doctors and 3 whole shift changes.
Yeah.
Because I was in labor for
totally
so long.
Different teams.
Yeah.
Introductions.
Yeah, it's
Hi, I'm
reintroduced
so-and-so.
himself.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
We had to explain everything all over to them, our whole birth plan. Every time we got a new wave of.
We're actually at closer to 30 hours of labor by now.
So we're that far along.
And
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and no one ate anything. So
Danny didn't eat anything. I'm on an IV, so I don't need to eat. But you didn't eat anything.
No one ate. No one ate.
Because once Danny was in the room, he wasn't allowed to leave because of how everything is right now.
I was quarantined.
He was quarantined. He couldn't leave for any reason. We had a bathroom, so you didn't even have to leave for that. Right. So yeah. So basically, they start the Pitocin again.
Second time.
The baby's doing all right this time. They're like, okay, baby's doing okay. Let's just let it go for a while, and then let's see. We'll just monitor it. So hours are going by. I can't feel the contractions at this point. The epidural has kicked in.
Went for an epidural, so now she's
chilling.
She's in cloud 9.
Epidural, best thing ever. Epidural is life. I don't know why I thought I was gonna do a natural birth. Second time around, I'm not even questioning it. I'm just not. So I can see the contractions. They're definitely stronger. You can see, but they still weren't coming consistent, which is interesting because that's what the Pitocin is supposed to do. They never became consistent. They were still coming sporadically, and they still weren't necessarily strong enough. But hours and hours later, I'm laboring, and I finally hit 9 centimeters. Finally. So I think we might be 36 hours in.
36 hours in.
And I'm like, yes, 9 centimeters. And the doctor's like, okay, we'll give you a couple more hours to see you going to 10. And I'm like, wait, that's a long time. I feel like I'll be sooner than a couple hours. So the nurse starts positioning me, and she's like, okay, we're going to have you start practicing pushing. I want to see how far up the baby is. So she's like showing me how to push, like walking me through it. And she's like, the baby's still really high up. And she's like, I don't know. So then we wait a little bit till I get to 10. The doctor comes in and she's like, okay, let's like see how far the baby is and see if you're ready to push. So she checks me again and she's like, the baby's still really high up. And every time I was trying to push, just like these practice pushes to see, she was like, the baby's heart rate is plummeting every time. So she's like, I don't really feel comfortable doing a vaginal birth because she has like a further way to go than if she was like further down, which is weird because I felt so much pressure down there. You can't feel the pain with epidural, but you can feel the pressure. So I felt her head really low and I was like, okay, she's ready. But the doctor was like, no, she's still too high up. And for the amount you have to push to get her like further down and then get her out, it's going to be super distressing to the baby and we don't want to risk that. So then she was like, I'm advising for a C-section. And at that point, I just
You lost it.
I lost it. I started bawling because the last thing I ever wanted was a C-section. I just never imagined myself having one. No one in my family has had one. So I did not mentally prepare at all for a C-section, which honestly, looking back, it wasn't really that I should have prepared on some level mentally, but I didn't. So,
and at this point, we've given the doctors and the nurses our birth plan, and the first 4 or 5 things off the birth plan all crossed off.
Yeah.
Gone. So, we're trying to keep an open mind, but it kind of hit you really hard.
And a lot of people said the best advice I would say that I've gotten is that you can have a plan, but like you have to be prepared for anything to happen. And it's so true. You don't know how your labor is gonna go, and I feel like we assume like, oh, this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen, but you don't know like what your labor is gonna be like. So it's really important to just keep an open mind, which I thought I did, but clearly I didn't because I was very, very upset about it.
So once we got that news, then we everything stopped for us. So basically, once she recommended the C-section, they're gearing up. We have
they're ready to push me
there's
out.
doctors in the hallways rolling things in, putting gloves on and masks and stuff like that. They're rolling everybody out, so everything's kind of starting to ramp up. Which is when we tell doc we need a second. So we take a moment, go to God, we take a second to pray.
We prayed about it.
You know what I mean? So we took a second, we prayed about it, and then we basically wanted to discuss our options with the doctor at this point.
So basically, I'm getting my placenta encapsulated, so I'm getting it turned into, she's like fake crying. I was getting my placenta turned into capsules so I could take them after birth. And so I wanted to make sure, because if I was doing it vaginally, I would have pushed out the placenta and I would have known when I pushed it out. But now that it's a C-section, I'm not going to know when they take out the placenta. So I was like, well, I just want to make sure you still preserve the placenta because that's something I really want, and I already planned for it. We had the whole kit. We had the cooler, everything ready. And then the doctor's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, she basically was like...
She basically said no.
She basically said no.
And I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's like my body part. Like, are you literally, after all this labor and everything I went through and being just... Now you're going to fight me about my placenta?
So the thing that was interesting about it was when we ask her that, she gets this like flustered, kind of like taken aback kind of demeanor about her. And we were really confused by it because, you don't get asked questions about things if people just sign the paperwork whenever you say
because we were like, why? And then she got weird about we asked why.
Yeah, she got really weird. She said, well, it's for medical reasons.
And for like medical research. And I was like, she said research. And I was like...
She said reasons.
Oh, I thought she said research.
She said for medical reasons, which is why I was like, well, you want to elaborate on that? Like, just a little. Give us a little peace of mind. We kind of just got... But
then that's when she said medical research, right? Because I feel like she said research.
She said that too.
Yeah, okay.
But when she said medical reasons,
yeah,
that's when we both looked at each other and was like, well, what are the reasons? You remember that?
Yeah. It almost turns into a back and forth, and I'm like, okay, the last thing we should be doing right now is fighting you about my placenta after, like, in the middle of, like, everything that's happening. So then she ends up saying like, oh, well, we'll see.
Yeah, well, we'll see. And when she did that, basically the conversation was over for her.
But I didn't want any more back and forth because I was like, she's about to cut me open and I don't want her to be mad. So I was like, if she takes it, we'll just have to like fight this later. But I was keeping hope and faith that she wasn't going to take it. But it was just another like added stress for no reason. But I guess what had happened, I think part of her reasoning was when they had broke my water, probably when I was like 5 or 6 centimeters, they broke my water, and the baby had pooped. And then later I got a low-grade fever in the middle of labor. But the fever went away within minutes. And I think I just like overheated my body because I was so cold. I put all these blankets on, then I got hot, and then I got a fever. So she was sure I had an infection of some sort. So I think she was, I don't know, for some reason wanted to keep my placenta.
As soon as we finished that conversation,
yeah, they're like ready to wheel us out.
They came in with the paperwork, the people, 5 or 6 nurses, doctors.
And Danny had to sign it all. Why? Why did they let me sign it?
You signed it, but I read it all. Because you were all.
I don't remember signing it. I was so distraught. So then, basically, they wheel me out, and they tell you where to go.
A little bit, yeah.
Once we come back, you can show Dad to the recovery room.
Do you want to get all your stuff together, and then I'll show you where the recovery room is, and I'll get you set up with the iPad.
Okay, okay.
Everything's on hold now. You're gonna be in here. Your wife is literally right. Yeah.
Because Danny's not allowed.
They wheel you out. They didn't really tell me where you went until I had to ask, basically.
Yeah.
So they wheel you out. I'm grabbing all the bags. So like, all right, sir, we need to get these bags together, blah, blah, blah. And they wheel you into the surgery room, and then they put me in the recovery room that's across the hall. And they say, hey, listen, we're going to set you up with an iPad. It's going to be maybe 20 or 30 minutes while she's in there, but we'll set you up with an iPad to watch the birth.
Yeah. So everything, honestly, the labor and stuff was hard, but I feel like it was probably, in the grand scheme of things, pretty standard, just long. But this is the part that kind of left me a little traumatized and was just like crazy. So once I go into the C-section room, I'm like, it's just like this big surgery room. It's white. It's like what you see in like movies. Like everything's white, and like there's all these doctors like gloved up. There's so many doctors and nurses in there. I want to say like 10 people, and like I'm just still crying. Like I can't stop crying. Everyone's just like very matter of fact, and like there was just one nurse that was so sweet and like saw how sad I was and like upset, and like held my hand and like really tried to console me, because no one else seemed to care that I was upset. When they wheel you in, basically they do this little like cover thing so you can't see your belly. Obviously no one wants to see that, and the anesthesiologist comes in, and basically he gives me more of the epidural to just numb everything from the waist down, make sure I don't feel anything. So the crazy part is when you do a C-section is they strap you down to the table like a mental patient, and so I'm strapped like this, and like both arms are strapped down. I can't move, and it's like super restricting. Like honestly, I didn't think I was gonna be able to do this video without crying, because when I think about it, it's like it was a lot. So they give me the epidural, they strap me down, and then all of a sudden I get super nauseous, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw up, and my head is like this, and I'm like, I don't want to throw up like this, like on my back. So they give me like this little bedpan, and I'm like, have to throw up like off to the side like this, and that's before they even like started anything. And then so then they start, I can't feel anything, and I start to stabilize a little bit. And then did my body start shaking then, or was it?
I think you started shaking. You were shaking twice during
Yeah.
the entire thing, like really, really badly.
Oh, I think it
But
was.
I don't know that, because at this point they hadn't given me the iPad, so
Yeah.
I can't even advocate for you.
Yeah.
Because I'm across the hall, and there's like no nurses or anybody I could talk to. I can't really ask any questions.
Yeah. And Danny's just on the iPad, so yeah, he can't.
I don't
like,
have the iPad yet.
Oh, okay. So you didn't even know what's going on.
Right.
So I honestly, I don't remember the exact sequence of things because there was so much going on. But basically, they start, and I can feel them pull the baby out, like the pressure of pulling the baby out, like in my chest. But I can't obviously feel the pain or anything. And then they turn on, I guess after the surgery, and I can hear her crying, and they bring the baby to me. Like a while later because they cleaned her up and everything. I didn't get to do skin to skin or anything. At this point, you're on the.
At this point, I have the iPad.
Yeah, and you're checking in on.
Before they take the baby out, I'm asking you if you're okay.
Okay, yeah.
Because this is the first time I get to see you. By this time, you're already thrown up. You're already strapped in, and I'm like, tell us, hello, can you hear me? Was everything all right? How you doing?
They had me on an oxygen mask.
And the only thing, because I was getting concerned because you weren't answering me like this. The only thing that got me going was that you turned over and you were like, huh?
How you feel? Okay. Well, I'm here. I'm right across the hall, okay?
Yeah.
Basically.
That's all I could give you. That's all I had inside me.
And I'm like, all right, I'm like asking the doctor. I was like, how's she doing? Because he's like, and the doctor's like, she's doing fine.
Yeah, the anesthesiologist was like way too chipper for me. Because I'm like, dude, I'm not doing fine.
She's not doing fine. So.
So basically, yeah, so then they pull the baby out, they clean her up, bring her to me, and I see her, and I'm like so out of it, I can't even like honestly enjoy seeing her because I'm like, I can't hold her. Like, I think they let like one hand free. I can't hold her or anything.
There she is. There she is.
That's your baby.
And as soon as like I see her for a little bit, Danny sees her on the iPad, I'm like get nauseous all over again. I'm like, take the baby, and they take the baby, and I literally throw up again. I'm like throwing up, and then my body starts convulsing. So I'm like this. I'm literally shaking, like convulsing uncontrollably, and I'm like, I'm cold. So they're like trying to give me blankets, trying to get me to not convulse. But I guess at that point they had turned on the antibiotics because the doctor was convinced I had an infection. So they were convinced to give me antibiotics, even though I told them I don't respond well to antibiotics. And as soon as I started shaking, I think they turned it off, right?
Yeah,
they turned it off because, yeah, like I told them. And then
and I'm watching on the iPad.
Yeah, you're watching me shake.
It's like a bad idea. I'm like, tell us what's going on, doctor, what's going on, and things like this. And the doctor's like, I guess frazzled or something. He's like,
yeah, the doctor's
he's dropping the iPad, so it looks like a bad TV show on my end.
He asked me, why am I shaking? The anesthesiologist asked me that, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? You're the one giving me drugs. I don't know why I'm shaking. So then they kept giving me more stuff to like, now they were trying to give me stuff to stop the shaking. And I'm like, no one's in there to advocate for me. I'm like shaking and I'm like, stop. I'm like, I want them to stop giving me drugs. And I'm like trying to yell to tell them, stop giving me drugs. Stop putting more stuff in my system. My system is freaking out right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I'm just shaking. And then I think eventually they get me to like a stable point.
Yeah.
And then they have to finish like, sewing me up and making sure everything's fine. But also while everything's going on, I'm hearing the nurse and the doctor say, the bladder's suspended. And they keep saying that. And I'm like, what is happening with my bladder? Like, is my bladder like not in the right place? Like, what does that mean? To this day, I don't even know what that means. I don't even want to look it up because I feel like it's gonna scare me. And they just kept saying that, and I was like, first of all, why are you screaming that? Like, I can't hear you. Like, why are you doing that? And then, so they got everything squared away, cleaned me up, and then they start to wheel me out, and then I'm still shaking.
Yeah.
Like, I'm shaking, just not as violently, but I'm still shaking, and I'm cold. So they wheel me out, and at this point, they had given you the baby, right?
They just
handed Danny the baby.
Handed me the baby in the recovery room. Didn't check if I washed my hands or anything. I wasn't robed up or anything. And just like, here you go.
It's like, here's your newborn baby.
And like just walked away. I'm like, okay.
And And that's a little sad for me because I really wanted to do skin to skin. I really wanted to like hold her after she was born, and I didn't get to because once they wheeled me into recovery, they were like, we have to monitor you for 2 hours, especially because of how things went in the operating room. So then I'm still shaking and I'm like, I'm cold. And at this point, I don't even know what's going on. I see like a glimpse of Danny holding the baby, but that's it. And then I just like knock out. I like fall asleep, right?
Right.
And then you said for like a half hour?
Yeah, we're out for 30, 45 minutes, something like that. And by the time you started coming to, that's when I was able to,
give me the baby.
Hand it to you. And were you still out of it?
I was still out of it. Like, honestly, I didn't really get to like, I feel like I didn't really get to like take in the baby until we got home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was,
So,
I couldn't enjoy the experience like I thought it was gonna be because I was just like, I didn't feel good.
So she got a chance to meet the baby at that point.
Yeah.
And then at this point, after a couple more hours in the recovery room, they finally got us checked in.
Yeah, so now we're in the postpartum ward, and then I'm just recovering. And yeah, the good thing is I had a lot of milk for her. So then the only thing is like when you give birth and then when you have to, no matter however you give birth, it's like now it's like you don't rest because now you have a baby. So it's like she's still up every 2 hours. Like she still needs to eat every 2 hours. So every 2-3 hours. So that doesn't stop. Like that starts right away. So I didn't get to sleep or recover anything after the C-section. It was immediately, okay, you gotta feed your baby now. So the good thing is, like you said, I had a lot of milk and colostrum in the beginning, so that wasn't an issue, and I was pumping.
The
And
nurses were so impressed.
they were so impressed. They were giving her like so much food.
They're like, oh, you made more colostrum here.
Stop
Give it to the
feeding her
baby.
so much.
It's like, give her a second. No, more colostrum.
They gave her so much. Like by the time I left the hospital, my milk was like regular milk because I feel like I just gave her everything. But Danny was a rock star, and Danny was doing all the feedings for the most part and all the diaper changes the first day and a half because I was bedridden. You're not allowed to walk after your C-section like till the next day. So the next day when I have to walk, it's like the worst pain I've ever felt. It felt like everything was ripping down there, like around my incision area and the abdomen area, and I was like, it was the one that was like the next word. That probably was worse than like contraction pain. Like that was, it was painful. So she gets me walking, and then eventually you have to like, use the bathroom. There were like checkpoints I had to meet before they let me leave. I had to like pass gas. I had to pee, and just make sure everything, I guess, is functioning.
And they were gun ho about getting you to do it too.
Yeah.
Which was good for us.
Yeah.
Because we were ready
to leave.
Go. So the sooner we can get those checked off, the better.
I don't know if this is like this for everyone, but like postpartum was like a whole nother, because I didn't even get to rest after this whole traumatic experience. And every like few hours there's a nurse or a doctor coming into the room at any hour of the day. 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody's coming like, oh, I need to draw blood, like, or they're asking us questions, like
they're coming wide awake.
Yeah, like full awake. And every time, because I also have to wake up every 2-3 hours to feed her, so every time I got a moment to sleep, somebody walked in like, okay, we have to give you more medicine, okay, we have to do this, we have to do that.
Here's 30 questions.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, can you answer, when's the last time you fed the baby? How many poops did she have? I'm like,
one nurse quizzed us.
yeah, she gives a whole quiz. We were like, I think this is your job, but okay.
At 4 in the morning.
Yeah. So we were ready to leave at that point, and I think we spent 2 nights in the hospital, right? We had that night.
Yeah,
we spent 2 nights, and then thank God they didn't. Usually they make you stay longer when you have C-section. They were ready to have us sent home. I don't know if it was because of Corona or anything, but we were ready to go.
Yeah,
so we didn't even question it. We were like,
yeah, we're all prepped at home anyway. We're ready to
yeah,
go.
because at this point, I feel like I really didn't get to enjoy the baby and just take her in. And I was like, I just want to go home and be in my own space and actually like feel like, okay, I had a baby. Because at this point, I just didn't feel like that. I didn't get that whole experience that I hear people talk about. We are ready to go home.
We are very ready to go home.
I've been poked. I've been prodded, I've been invaded. Yeah, so we go home. Was still in a lot of pain, still recovering. That's part of the reason why I didn't want a C-section, because I know the recovery is like really, really intense, and it is. But the only thing that gives me peace, or gives us peace, with the decision to do the C-section on the doctor's end is that we do feel like they did try. They took it to the end, even though it sucked, because like if I was going to do C-section, I didn't need to be in labor. I could have just been like, all right, 5 o'clock, let's do this. But they tried. They got me all the way to 10 centimeters. We saw that her heart rate was going down, so that kind of gave us peace that it wasn't a fly-by-night decision, and that they actually tried to do it, you know, the natural way. And like we said, we prayed about it. Because I just feel like the hospitals really push C-sections on moms, and I didn't want to be a statistic in that way. So yeah, I had to deal with a lot of that. And coming home, I think the next day I had a really huge panic attack. I was like crying, and like I felt like my whole body was like it felt like something had left my body, which something like what baby did, but it just felt like really like I was like falling down a hole, and I was like crying, and like had so much anxiety, and Danny had to like hold me, and I was just like, I think I finally was able to come home and decompress everything that happened, and it just like flooded out of my body. And even like still to this day, 2 weeks later, and when I talk about it, I still get a little bit of anxiety, like creeps in on me. So it's still something I'm dealing with daily. But every day's getting better, and having little London is the best distraction, and she's perfect, you know. And now that I was able to get home, come home, soak it in, yeah, that was good now.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks in now. She's healthy, she's happy, she's gained a lot of weight.
I know, she's getting bigger, and she's so cute, and she's such a she's a
sweetheart.
Perfect, yeah. So even though it was a crazy experience, yeah, it was worth it. And, you know, no complaints. It's just dealing with it and moving forward, and whew.
You did it.
Only just one child, right? We just need one, right? I think we're good with one. I don't know. I don't know how women do this, like 2, 3, 4 times, 5. Some people do it way more than that. I don't. Yeah. More Godspeed to you guys. More power. You guys are rock stars. I have a lot of respect for moms after this. A lot. You know, if you're able to, go hug your mom right now. Give her a big hug for doing this for you.
You guys are rock stars.
Yes, we are. So that's pretty much the story. Yeah, that's everything that happened. I don't know if we left anything out, but honestly, I don't remember everything.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind.
It was a whirlwind.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have a crazy birth story, I'd love to hear it. Share it in the comments, because a lot of you were sharing them on Instagram, and I was like, whoa, some of these were like crazier than mine. And I was like, okay, we all been through it. We all going through it. We all have a story, and it's okay. It's okay that you don't have the perfect birth story, and you didn't labor for 2 hours and push the baby out in a half hour. Like, not everyone's like that. A lot of people do have birth experiences, and it's okay to feel like it was traumatizing, and it's okay to have to work through it. And I think I'll still be working through it, you know, for a little bit, until I feel like I don't have anxiety about it, because I still do, if I'm being honest. Anything else? We did it! We made a baby.
I'm from the side.